Well, it's time now for our Entre Nous segment, and today we're talking about something rather sacred in France, the lunch break. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by Solange Mougin. Solange, why are we discussing this today?
Well, not only is the lunch break incredibly French, it's ingrained in French culture. But also the French government has just announced that it has finalized a bill that it will put forth this summer. It'll reform the use of titres-restaurant, or the meal vouchers that are used by more than 5 million workers here in France. Now, these titres-restaurant, which is actually the official name, but it's more often called les tickets resto, they have been, for many French workers, a cornerstone for them, how they pay for lunch, since the idea arrived here from the UK in the 1960s. So I'm going to explain why this reform is partially spin and partially a tough sell, and then we'll get into a bigger question. And this is the tradition of the French lunch break, and is it dying out, with more and more workers eating solo at the office? So to start, the tickets resto, what are they, and what has been announced? They're vouchers that are paid 40 to 50% by the employee, and the rest is paid by the employer. They used to be paper. Now they are on cards that you tap. It is tax-free, and the idea is to encourage people to go out and eat at restaurants. The concept is win-win for all. It's lunch money for workers, more clients in restaurants, and for the government, too, it is great. It recoups more taxes from the food sector boost than from the 1.5 billion euros of the tax exemptions that this extra money would have brought in. But where and how these vouchers are used has changed in recent years. Since 2022, in an effort to combat food inflation, the government allowed the vouchers to be used in supermarkets for basic food products. And that temporary exception runs until the end of 2026, hence this new law. Now, the Commerce Minister announced in April that the government will make this change actually to use in supermarkets. It'll make it permanent and allow them to be used as well on Sundays. They're pushing it as an extra cost-free help in the cost of living crisis. And many consumers and even employers, well, they are pretty happy about it.
I'm partially paying with vouchers, please. We have fennel to sauté with carrots and peas.
I think it's great for people who are having a hard time making ends meet. It can help at the end of the month to pay for food with the vouchers.
Meal vouchers can allow employers to compensate for not being able to raise salaries or a loss in purchasing power.
But Solange, not everyone's happy about these reforms. Could they be eroding the sacred French lunch break?
Well, restaurants and their lobbies, they are not too happy about it, and they say that they're already getting fleeced by voucher commissions, that this boost actually helps supermarket chains and not independent restaurants. So there are calls within the sector to create other incentives or even scrap the vouchers entirely and just pay the employees cash. But the issue is actually much larger than these reforms on lunch vouchers, which actually only account for about a third of French workers. Only a third receive them. The larger issue is people's habits are changing when it comes to this lunch break. The days of long three-course meals with lots of wine in the middle of the workday, they are now the exception rather than the daily tradition for many French people. 6 out of 10 workers bring their gamelle, or their lunchbox, to work. Even if generally eating at your desk is frowned upon, French law actually states that there needs to be a kitchen or a cafeteria or a place other than your desk where you work to eat at in businesses with more than 50 employees. Nonetheless, this phenomenon of eating sur le pouce, or quickly eating, say grabbing a sandwich or a prepackaged salad, it has largely replaced many of the long lunches.
It's a salad that costs €3 to €4. It's cheap. I can use my lunch vouchers. It's always the same price, and it doesn't cost much.
Now, the institutionalizing of the lunch break actually came about in France after the Industrial Revolution, as a means of actually airing out factories and offices against things like tuberculosis and pollutants. And today, that tradition of a 2-hour break is very much still present in many ways in French society. Shops may be closed, schools is let out. People go home for a nap, for example. But the actual time spent eating lunch and taking a pause, it has gone down nonetheless. According to Speak Snacking, and a poll of theirs from last year, the average break is 47 minutes in France, with half of the people eating under 30 minutes and half picking bakeries or les boulangeries as their go-to choice to grab a bite.
Okay, so people are taking shorter lunch breaks, consuming quick bites for lunch. Are they still eating with colleagues?
Well, the phenomenon of solo dining, it is gaining traction here in France, like in other nations. It's largely a generational thing as well. In 2024, a poll by Flash Open Eats found that only 12% of French workers over the age of 49, they regularly eat alone, whereas nearly 3 times as many young workers eat alone, or 29% of those under 25 say they often eat alone at work. Many actually also say that they need this solo time as a personal break from their work and potentially from their colleagues as well. Phone use and the company of phones, of course, is part of this phenomenon, but it's also a generational shift in how people view their work and their workplace and the space that it takes up in their overall lives. Even if polls continue to show the importance of team building, networking, personal happiness that can happen at these moments. So it is important to eat sometimes alone, why not, but also have some time with colleagues to enjoy lunch together.
Sounds very romantic. Not always possible where we work, Solange, but we can try.
Not.
Solange Rougin, thank you very much indeed. And you can watch more on new episodes on our website, of course, France24.com.